My next guest has been called the human lie detector. Darren Stanton, formerly a frontline police officer, is now an acknowledged expert in the interpretation of body language, with a particular interest in deception detection. That's two interesting words, isn't it? Deception detection. I'll be honest and say this is a subject that intrigues me, to say the least. The idea that we might all learn to pick up unspoken truths simply by paying better attention to the unconscious movements and gestures of the person sitting opposite us. It's a fascinating prospect. Darren joins me now. Welcome, Darren.
Hi, thank you very much. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Darren.
Hi.
Very, very interesting, very tempting thought. It's almost like a superpower. I think we should go through some clips of Prince Harry. We'll go through them one by one, and you can tell us, if you will, what you're reading in
Absolutely.
what's happening.
How did it feel being back? Being with her?
Being with her, it was great. It was just so nice to see her. You know, she's on great form. She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, you know, protected and got the right people around.
Well,
Now, I must admit, I just looked at that and saw a man talking. I wasn't really getting more beyond what he was saying.
So essentially, one of the things I look for is something called a micro-expression. Now, a micro-expression is a fleeting flash of emotion. So what has been discovered is that even though different cultures and different locations have their own kind of culture, so for example, if we went to, say, New Guinea, they probably wouldn't know what a handshake was, whereas the 7 basic laws of emotion are showing happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, contempt and disgust. So what I look for is when someone is saying something, are the non-verbals are they congruent with what that person's saying or not? So not in terms of lying, but with that I see what we call a sadness micro-expression. So when Harry's speaking in that
And he's talking about the Queen.
Yeah, I think he's feeling he's quite torn between, you know, being over there and the UK. So he's feeling genuine sadness at not being in the thick of it almost.
Oh.
And is it just that? What was he making that body language with? Was it his mouth? Was it his eyes?
So the eyebrows basically come together and the mouth sort of droops. And also, when people tend to go like with the lips, that's almost like a self-reassurance gesture.
Gosh, if you wore a mask and were in COVID, you would miss 50%.
Absolutely.
That must be awful.
So in terms of the facial muscles engaging, and then the lips, and then also there's a change in physiology. So what I look for is people often get the deception aspect incorrect, because when people are under pressure, there'll be an emotional shift. So I'm looking for emotional shifts in people's body language. And what we saw within that was Harry's lips, if you watch that, will go quite pale. And that's to do with an emotional shift. So we've got that, we've got...
is that him guarding his emotion?
Yes.
Is that him knowing how he feels?
Yeah.
And unconsciously endeavouring not to show it?
Yes.
Is it stiff upper lip?
Absolutely, and there's also what we call a linguistic deflection, which in real terms means he's effectively avoiding the question, not because he's got anything to hide.
But he did look down to the left.
That's correct, yeah.
And is that what you call deflection then?
Well, when people look down on the left, because he's right-handed, he's running the dialogue in his head before he responds. We call that internal dialogue.
Ah.
By the opposite, Prince William's left-handed. And so he accesses feelings quite a lot.
Oh.
So Prince William will look down on the left, but because he's left-handed, it's reversed.
Ah.
I'm always running everything through a filter, all the time.
I think my eyes go like, oh.
So in that 10-second clip, we see about what we call seven or eight sort of what we call red flags almost of a shift in emotion.
I've got a second clip.
Sure.
Home for me now is you know, for the time being, it's in the States. And it feels that way as well.
Does it?
Yeah. We've been welcomed with open arms.
Yeah.
And it's got such a great community up in Santa Barbara. So
you feel like that's home more for you?
Yeah.
So what was he revealing there, consciously or not?
Again, the animation of the hands is not really consistent with what he's saying, almost. It's like if I was talking to yourself and I was maybe gesturing the points but out of sync. He has no confidence in what he's just said, saying that LA is now home. I don't believe he feels that LA is really home. I think he's homesick. And I think that's being conveyed by the body language.
Think that, really.
And then the gesture with sort of, this is what we call a self-reassurance gesture. Anything to do with when people sort of self-hug, either put the hands to the face, or they'll kind of hug themselves, or maybe sort of grip their hands together. But when he makes the gesture with his hands, that's almost like a self-hug. It's quite vulnerable.
why are we as a species or as animals transmitting that which we don't want known? You know, on the one hand, you're saying that he's saying that his home is now in LA, but the truth of it is, you know, that he's homesick, as you interpret it.
Yeah.
But why do our bodies betray us when what he's seeking to do, you would say, is sell the idea that he's perfectly at home now?
It's a great question. I mean, a lot of this goes back to primeval days, you know, sort of the fight or flight situation. So if we have to fight, the brain suddenly pumps adrenaline and blood to our hands. And if we want to run away, that's why we sometimes get this shaking our legs if we've, you know, had to run away from something, we've been fearful. So a lot of these things are innate. And no matter how well trained somebody is, politicians, you know, I assess lots of people from different walks of life, no matter who they are, how well they're trained, we cannot not communicate this information, Neil.
It's almost as though there's the person who's speaking, who's communicating most directly.
Yeah. It's
almost as if in the background there is another person who's giving a separate version of events that contradicts the first.
Definitely.
But we're intelligent, aren't we? So we've worked it out. We know how to manipulate a little bit, don't you think?
And the other obvious question I get sometimes is who can beat the system? And people with, say, psychiatric issues, you know, personality disorders, psychopaths, because they can create their own reality. So they say the mind and body are linked. So if they truly believe something, then the body will follow that. So sometimes, you know, in the past, that people can hoodwink the police or something like myself. So it's not 100%.
But even if you didn't believe it, could you... Because a lot of people are very convincing liars. So how is that achieved? Is that just being clever, just like really conscious of...
Poker face.
Yeah, I mean,
poker face. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
great word.
Yes, I've sort of tried poker players in the past as well. So if someone has to go into a situation, so if you look at a lot of professional poker players, they'll now wear a bandana and they'll wear heavy sunglasses because they know now that if they get a good hand, the pupils will dilate.
Oh.
And then there'll also be a rush of blood to the lips.
I think there's a third clip. Is that?
Yeah.
We do have another one. Oh, we don't. Oh no, there's no third. Oh, it's just the two clips. Don't we all, though, you're an expert and you've finessed this, but we must all read body language all the time. Is that not what we're all doing constantly?
Yeah, I think, you know, very often people say, oh, you know, you're very good at what you do. And I say, well, look, I've just followed something that I've got a passion for. And like most things in life, anything we have a passion for and we spend an inordinate amount of time on, we get good at. So we've all got the ability to kind of connect with people, so our friends, our kids, you know, and people tend to know when the kids are lying, or family, you know, things like that. So all I've done is learnt the ability to build that really high degree of rapport with people I've either sort of not met or only just seen a few seconds of behaviour with. But yeah, principally, we've all got this ability to connect. Is
body language a universal language, or would someone seeking to deceive who is British, would their body language be different, say, from someone from, you know, Asia or from Africa?
Yeah, there are sort of different gestures. So, for example, you know, that's like okay, but in certain countries, I think it's Brazil and Portugal, that's actually an offensive gesture.
Oh, middle finger.
There's a famous report back in the 60s where Richard Nixon went to Brazil, made that gesture, and he offended about 1,000 people in the audience.
But that's a conscious gesture.
Yes.
Making that. What I meant was, if I was seeking to deceive,
yes,
consciously or not, would I do that differently, or would I give myself away differently than someone from another country or another
Generally,
culture?
these tend to be innate. You know, so the micro-expressions are innate. Things like eye contact is generally 3 to 5 seconds. So as I look at you now, they say if you exceed eye contact beyond 5 seconds, you're either in love with that person or there's going to be...
I think I'm in love with you because I haven't stopped staring at you.
It's a fascinating topic, really, and because I write for the press as well, spend a lot of time in coffee shops and, you know, I can't help observing different
people
behaviours.
Watching, it's fascinating, isn't it?
But to answer your question, you know, I think people generally, for example, with the eye contact, the general myth is that we cannot lie to somebody and look them in the eye. But research says that yes, we can. So one of the things that I say to people is if someone overcompensates eye contact and says, well, honestly, I didn't steal that thing, or I didn't cheat on you, then that becomes a red flag. So it seems that they are being genuine, but that goes against, you know, sort of physiology.
So As well as, we've been talking a lot there about deception and diverting attention from the truth. What about, how can you readily tell if someone likes you, that your message, let's say, what you're saying is being received? What are the positive cues?
Great question. So the first thing is what we call matching and mirroring. So, for example, like you two guys are sat very similar. Again, you'll see people matching each other's posture. So the quickest way to build rapport with somebody, say on a date or a job interview, is to match their posture. Or if you're talking to somebody and they suddenly match you, that means that you're influencing them on a deeper level, and that you've built trust and rapport with that person. That's the first level. And then again, eye contact. If you maintain the eye contact 3 to 4 seconds. And then an interesting one, which you can try in coffee shops, if you're maybe talking to somebody or in a meeting, if you just suddenly maybe put a teaspoon on over their half of the table, if they're getting on well with you, they'll leave it there. But subconsciously, if they're not buying what you're saying to them, they'll push it back over your side of the table.
How subtle.
So,
my territory.
People on dates and things like that tend to do that a lot.
I always notice that if you're in company and there's drinks involved, if you pick up the cup, everyone does it.
Yes.
Is that kind of mirroring positive, or is it?
It's positive.
Is it engagement?
Yeah, they've done research on this where they've had people at a bar in America, and for example, if you were then picking up your cup and drink. So, for example, let's say you picked your drink up, but then you matched her, so you picked yours up when you did. After a few times of you picking yours up, you'll find that the other person will then follow you. So it means that you can create rapport quite quickly with somebody.
It's like yawning, in a way. But is that the same sort of thing?
Yeah. One person can almost create like a Mexican wave.
Yes.
I think that's when that's a yawn is in response to a drop in oxygen, isn't it? And
Yeah,
so if
but
one
then it
person
sets off
yawns,
other people.
everyone thinks,
Catches
I better
I
get some more
see.
oxygen as well, so I should yawn too.
Sometimes people do just to fit in, but yeah, you can create. I've done it myself, faked a yawn, and then suddenly everyone starts yawning.
Yeah. Can
Fantastic,
I ask a quick
fantastic stuff.
question?
We're
No,
going to have to move it on,
Okay.
but Darren, that's amazing stuff, and I could again yet another topic that I could just continue.
Oh,
for the
yeah.
next hour and a half.
It's a massive topic.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you very
along
much for having
and
me.
giving us those insights.